with every cycle, markets expands, I don't know, 3 times, 10 times. So I think it's just a question of time, or how many cycles we need till we hit mass adoption.
Right. I think it's a process. I don't think it's gonna happen just because of one simple thing changing. But if you had to perhaps put your finger on one or two things that definitely need to change with the industry as it stands currently, for us to be able to perhaps move the needle on adoption, what would they be?
So we need more practical use cases. I think
Right.
having DeFi protocols for DeFi users, it's cool, but it's still niche market, right? It's crypto
Hmm.
native users. So we need, in order to get mass adoption, we need to solve problem for a lot of customers. So that's why we need a bit more practical use cases. I think blockchain payments or microtransactions uh, could be one of these use cases. Because look, payments, it's part of our everyday life. There are different types of
Yeah.
payments, like everyday payments, cross-border payments, micro payments, but payments, every person in the world, one way or another, pay for something, for goods or services. So if
Hmm.
we can find the practical, useful case for blockchain payments, well, it can be a trigger for mass adoption.
Right. Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. Now, in terms of security, let's touch upon that perhaps, because the world of cryptocurrencies is very dynamic and balancing innovation and security is always crucial. And I think with somebody, with your kind of experience and repute, I don't think that, you've played dice with it at all. But how do you navigate this particular challenge to provide cutting edge services while ensuring the safety of their user assets and their funds?
That's it's a key question in the
Yeah.
industry, security and safety of assets. And it's quite interesting that the industry is not young anymore, but there are still a lot of security issues happening in DeFi, or even centralized platforms like Huobi, for example, who were hacked recently. So
Right.
the thing with security is you always need to monitor your setup. You always need to be up to date, up to speed with the new technologies. In order to do that, you need a team of experts who have, for focusing on security. You also
Hmm.
need to work with reliable partners who can provide the base layer of infrastructure. It can be custody or it can be blockchain infrastructure, depends on what kind of project you're building, or product you're building. And the third part is you need external view. It can be auditor, or it can be the security external expert who can review your setup. But again, there is no really silver bullet, and hackers or bad actors, they always trying to exploit what you've built. And the best way to protect yourself is just to be ahead of them with the
Right.
security trends, with monitoring, with focusing on security. But you're absolutely right. Security is extremely important in the
Right.
industry, because if you have security breach, it can be end of your business. So it's better to focus on the security and safety from very beginning.
Absolutely. I think that is where a lot of relatively younger entrepreneurs or first time entrepreneurs, they kind of try to cut costs, and when it comes to security, or they kind of put it off that they'll get it done later. Because let's be honest, engaging with security audit firms or any kind of a product that would help you with this, or a consultant, it can be very expensive. But it's still nothing when, compared to perhaps something if it goes wrong, and the kind of cost that would come at.
Yeah, that's true. So security is something you shouldn't ignore. You shouldn't ignore. And I know it might be not the most exciting thing when you build a new product, but if you're dealing with people's money, I think security should be
It's
part of
paramount.
your business strategy. Yeah.
Absolutely, it has to be paramount. I think that is the only way. That is actually one of the factors that will create perhaps more adoption, because there are more happy people, happy users. in this space, and then they would be eager for others to be able to reap the benefits as well. But if you are somebody who's cutting corners when it comes to security, and then there is a bit of a any kind of an F up that happens, then it's bad for the industry as a whole and not just your platform.
Absolutely agree.
So, in terms of now, because we're talking about users, could you share perhaps a memorable, feedback or success story from a Wirex user that kind of illustrates the positive impact that your platform has had on their financial experience? You guys have been around for so long. I'm sure there are many examples that you can give me.
Well, that's an interesting question. I've, over the years, I think we've seen you know, good and bad feedback. Obviously, our product is retail product, and you always
Right.
have
Yeah.
happy customers and unhappy customers. But
Right.
it's difficult to pick up one of the feedbacks. But I think what always resonate with our team and what kind of keep us going is when somebody is sharing some excitement when they were able to, I don't know, buy a ring or gift to the partner, for example, with Wirex card, or somebody was able to pay for something very valuable to them with digital assets. Also, I think it's quite interesting to see that people who tried to use crypto debit cards for first time, and they realized, okay, you can actually use these digital assets in everyday life. And I think
Right.
this, the moment, the happy moment for them, it's and when they share this feedback, I think it's very motivating for us.
Absolutely. I think there's nothing more beautiful. First of all, I think there's nothing more lovely than the art of creation and, the satisfaction that you can derive from creating something that works beautifully and that's solving a real problem. But I think greater than that is when somebody other than you or your loved ones, you see them using that platform. That gives you immense satisfaction. And it makes all the sweat, hard work, blood, and tears seem worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when when it again comes to users, and you have such a retail product, and because we do have an adoption problem in Web3, how have you over the years seen the consumer trends first of all and the consumer behavior change? That is one, and a second is how have you been able to successfully acquire these users? What would be your advice to say somebody who's creating a retail product in Web3? And on how to acquire users in the correct way.
I think the first trend we see is market growing, right? We're talking about mass
Yeah,
adoption. We haven't reached mass adoption yet, but market month over month, year over year, it's growing. I think like 5 years ago or 4 years ago, we talked about kind of niche, small market. But I think right now the market is actually quite big if you take into consideration crypto native customers or crypto curious customers. That's audience is actually quite big, and every cycle expands this audience, and rising Bitcoin price is the best marketing tool for any crypto product. In terms of a customer acquisition, I think that's kind of the easy and not easy advice, but
mm,
focus on the solving the problem. If you
right,
identify the problem, you solve the problem from retail customers, it will be easier to acquire customers. If you're trying to sell something which customers don't really need,
mm,
or you're not really solving the problem, or the solution or traditional solution they have better than what you offer, then it will be, it will be difficult to scale and acquire customers. But solving on the problem or focusing on the solving the problem, I think is the key.
right. Absolutely. I think, any new entrepreneur, anybody who's just building a platform, be it in Web3 or otherwise, I think the entire idea should be around being able to solve a real problem for your end user. Because if you're able to do that, then your solution itself becomes very sticky and they'll keep coming back to it. So, Pavel, moving on to some fun questions now. I would love to ask you one or two of these questions which are a little on the lighter side of things. So imagine if you were having, say, coffee with Satoshi Nakamoto at a crypto-themed cafe. What would your conversation be about, and who would pick up the tab?
You're asking about historical figure.
No, so I'm asking about Satoshi Nakamoto. If you were like sitting with him and having a conversation, if we knew who he was or she was, or a group of people, and so what do you think you would talk to them about?
Um, that's a very good, interesting question. So I think everyone just want to understand who Satoshi Nakamoto is. So I
Right.
would probably, focus on who they are, share he and uh, about the past, about experience, what we did before inventing Bitcoin.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that's kind of fascinating question. I think with Satoshi Nakamoto, there is a lot of mystery about this person. So I would probably focus on knowing a bit more about history and the person rather than some Bitcoin technical aspects.
Yeah, it would be interesting, right? Well, like, what was the kind of thought process behind creating something so beautiful, and then what was perhaps the reason, or what exactly motivated them, or what was their reason to, kind of fade into oblivion, so to say. And yeah, it would make for a really interesting conversation. I think even I would perhaps want to know more on the personal side of things rather than, talking primarily about Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, I think it's Satoshi is a very fascinating, mysterious figure. That's
Yeah,
true.
absolutely. Okay, one more. So, if you could use perhaps a time machine, which historical event or era would you like to visit, and how do you think the presence of cryptocurrencies would have influenced that time?
Well, what I thought the question about Satoshi was a difficult one, but that's even, even more difficult. That's a good question. I think the in finance and in economy there is there is so many events in the history. I would probably
Hmm.
think about when United States decided to move away from gold-backed
Right, right.
not stable
That
coin
was in
but
the
currency.
1970s. Yeah, the
Yeah,
gold standard. That was in the
gold standard.
1970s.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
gold standard. I think it was interesting decision, and I think what we've seen right now it's a long tail of this big decision, but I think it was very big decision not just for United States, for entire world, and yeah, I think it influenced a lot what was happening in an economy, and I think it might even influence the fact that people wanted something decentralized, the new type of currency. So
Hmm.
if I pick up one of the historical events, that's probably one of them.
Yeah, no, I think that would be very interesting, right? It would be an interesting time to go back and introduce perhaps this concept when gold standard was being abandoned. This is a very good answer, and I think it's a question that kind of makes you think a little bit. So that's why I like putting in these questions apart from talking about the product as well. And you took it like a sport, so more power to you. I would, just by talking to you, I kind of it struck me that I haven't really asked you if Wirex itself as a platform is planning to build any kind of utility applications apart from your main product to increase adoption and on your rollup.
Um, that's a very good question. So Wirex, as a company, so if we don't take into consideration our main product, we focusing a lot on education. So we have
Hmm.
different education program where we're trying to provide learning materials for customers or for just people who are not Wirex customers, so we can learn about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, different DeFi trends, different DeFi terms. So that's one area. But we also have another initiative which we started actually 4 years ago. It's called Women in Crypto. So
Okay.
cryptocurrency is very male-dominated industry and kind of
Yeah.
similar to finance, to be honest. Uh, and this initiative, Women in Crypto, we do it every year, and
Hmm.
recognize ladies who's working in the crypto industry. So it's a process, but if you Google it, women in crypto Wirex, I think that's one of the initiative I'm very proud of. And yeah, like every year we have this kind of a format where we're trying to recognize and reward uh, uh, a woman who's working in crypto industry in different products, and everyone can actually nominate the candidate every year. But yeah.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. I have actually checked that out personally myself because being a woman in this space, like you said, there are very few women, females who are in finance. It's interesting to sort of see that kind of initiative that you guys have taken. So, Pavel, now that kind of takes me to the last question. And this is something that I ask everyone who kind of comes on the show, because you've been on the other side of the peering glass. You were in Web2, you worked for traditional finance. If somebody was in a similar position like you, perhaps, and they were also peering in and trying to decide whether they want to move and work in Web3 or build in Web3, what would be your top 2 or 3 suggestions for them to start living on blockchain?
So my first suggestion is it's very good timing right now to enter cryptocurrency world as a user or as an entrepreneur. It's really up to you. But again, as I mentioned before, I think we are at the beginning of the next cycle. And the cycles, they don't happen overnight. It's a process. But I think what we see right now is beginning of a cycle, and that's the kind of the most exciting time. So the first advice, just do it now, because it's the right timing. As a user, as an entrepreneur, as a I don't know, as a researcher, whoever you want to be, it's a good timing. And maybe the second point is try to do your own research. There are a lot of cryptocurrencies, and there are a lot of people who promising you whatever you dreamed about, you will find this on the internet. But just do your own research when it comes to investing or participating or choosing, secure solution for your digital assets. It's like DeFi protocol or wallet. Just keep this in mind. Do your own research. There are a lot of solutions. There are a lot of people with a lot of promises. They're not always right. They're not always correct. But they're not always true. So join now and do your own research, and you will be all right.
Absolutely. I think no truer words have been spoken. It's a good time to get into Web3, considering, we are looking at perhaps markets becoming a little better as well. And I do think, though, for builders, it doesn't matter what the market condition is, but it does create perhaps a perception in the potential user's head. So it's a good time to build. And obviously, as always, do your own research before you get into Web3. Like any other industry, you need to know what you're getting into before you get your hands dirty, and be aware of the risks. So being self-aware is very, very important before you get into anything. So thank you so much, Pavel, for taking out the time to speak to us. This was a really wonderful, insightful conversation. I have been a big fan of Wirex, since you guys started. You've been around for a long time. I've also been around since nearly 2011, 12, when I started initially mining. And it's been a pleasure to witness your journey so far. And I'm so grateful that you could make the time to come and speak to me today. Before we wrap this up, any parting thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and it was a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, just wanted to maybe say once again that it's a great time to be in the industry. It's very fascinating industry. Talking about the crypto and blockchain technology, it changes very fast. And if you're considering joining the crypto industry, it's the right moment.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think Pavel and I completely would like to encourage you guys to perhaps look at Web3, because I truly think that you owe it to yourself to look at this technology and understand how it's going to change the world. Pavel, we almost sound like cult leaders trying to ask people and members to join. But honestly, I think the technology itself is worth the while that the time that you'll put in researching and trying to see if you can find a niche here. So I completely agree, and thank you once again, Pavel, for taking out the time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.